My pleasure.
Peter, I follow your work. You have been warning about the dangers of inflation for eons now. Wages are not rising as fast as inflation. So it's pretty simple math, Peter. If your wages are going up, say 2%, and inflation is 3 to 5%, you're losing money. I mean, sooner or later, we're all going to be eating cat food if this continues.
Well, that's generally the trend with inflation, is the price of labor never keeps up with the price of stuff. But the real problem is that immediately after COVID, a lot of Americans stopped working. But unfortunately, they didn't reduce their spending because the government made the mistake of replacing the incomes they lost with new money that the Federal Reserve was printing. So we were making fewer things to buy, but everybody had more stuff, more money to buy stuff. And so prices just went ballistic, and they're going to keep going up.
Peter, do you have any tips for the regular consumer, the middle class American family out there working their butt off to try to, listen, rich guys, they have fancy accountants, they have hedge mechanisms against this. But what does the middle class family do to avoid this financial apocalypse of inflation coming? How do they handle it?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's a tax. So when the Biden administration says they're not taxing the people that make less than $400,000, they're hitting them with this huge inflation tax. But one way that the average American can try to avoid it is to stock up now. Buy the things that you think you may need a year from now, 2 years from now. Buy it now, especially the stuff that's non-perishable, because in the future, stuff is going to be even in shorter supply than it is now, but the prices are going to be much higher. So why wait for the prices to go up? Just buy the stuff you need now while it's available and a lot less expensive than it's going to be pretty soon.
Peter, I got about 45 seconds left, but this really worries me. It's not like inflation crises haven't happened around the world. Argentina, the infamous example of the Weimar Republic. It's not like we don't have history books to look at. This could get very ugly very quick if we don't get our arms around this.
Well, it will, and there's really no way to get our arms around it. I think we're going to reap the whirlwind of the winds that we've been sowing. And, you have to go back to the 1970s to see inflation anywhere near this bad. The problem is we're already at the point where we were at the latter part of the 1970s. We're just getting started. So we're going to be looking at serious annual inflation rates in the double digits. And imagine how high the official rates would be if the government was actually measuring them accurately, because we're not keeping track of prices using the same CPI that we used back in the 1970s. What we're doing now really understates the true degree to which prices are rising. So Americans are feeling the pain of inflation to a much greater degree than it's being reflected in the official numbers.
Peter, thanks a lot for joining me. I really appreciate your insights.
Oh, my pleasure, anytime. The problem is much of this debt now is being monetized by the central bank. The Federal Reserve prints money to buy up all this debt. And all that is levying a massive inflation tax on the economy. And this is only getting started. Prices are going to explode in the United States for all manner of consumer goods, especially goods relative to services, because the American economy, after years and years of deficits crowding out private investment, we are completely dependent on the productive capacity of the rest of the world. We are running record trade deficits. Just yesterday, we printed the largest monthly trade deficit in U.S. history, better than $73 billion. Those deficits are going to keep getting higher and higher. And eventually, and I think relatively soon, the value of our money, the dollar, is going to collapse. And all the prices of the imported goods are going to be going up much faster than they are right now.
And Professor Wolf, I know we have pretty much this same conversation with you quite regularly about trade and what Peter's talking about. What do you make of Peter's comments there?
Well, I'm always mystified by Peter's comments, because if this is against capitalism, he does have a problem of explaining it. Is everybody wrong except him? Is everybody making a terrible mistake? Is the system self-destructing?
Most people, yes.
I don't think so.